We are back. Welcome to the Leadership Launchpad Project. I'm Rob Kalvarowski, and as always, the yang to my yin, Susan Hobson's here with us. Susan, how are you?
I'm so glad you said that. We were riding the same wavelength this morning, buddy. I was actually thinking about that as I was getting dressed this morning. We were on a summer retreat with all of our legacy peeps, and we actually found out that we've been saying it the wrong way all this time. The yin is the calm or introverted energy, and the yang is the loud, vivacious extrovert. So yeah, we got it right now. I'm doing fabulous, as you can tell. I'm high flying. My child made it back to school this week. So the plane has successfully left this runway, and I could not be more pleased. How about you, buddy? How you feeling?
Good. Yeah. I mean, obviously, last week's episode, we had my keynote that was on that went incredibly well, and lots of folks have been reaching out. So I'm excited about that one. I would say it's the most I've ever been myself on any talk I've ever done. And so it was an incredible thing to see, even watching back the game tape, how it all unfolded. And there is a something to be said about that.
It was such a beautiful full circle moment for me to witness. I remember when we first connected, you working on that aspirational future self and seeing yourself on that very stage. So I just love it. So proud of you, buddy. And yeah, so many lives affected by that keynote. So I was really happy we could share that with our peeps.
I love it too. And obviously, we have to start off with a quote.
But of
And
course,
and so since you got the heart shirt on, and Lav was talking about the
rose quartz.
yeah, the rose quartz about love, we'll start there. And this quote is from Craig Crippen, and he says, "As you awaken, you will come to understand that the journey to love isn't about finding the one. The journey is about becoming the one."
Let that hang. Let that hang. Tell us why you chose that one today, sir.
And that's the journey for all of us, is the journey of becoming who we are. And that lands and connects with people in so many ways more than putting on that mask and trying to be somebody you're not. And that's really the wisdom in there. It's the hard work also.
That's the journey.
So I kind of spoiled the party already, but we have a special guest returning to the show. Lavender Morantz is with us. She's a passionate children's author and illustrator and an international TEDx speaker. She has two daughters, a motivated entrepreneur with multiple businesses, and in lifestyle coaching as well. She's a certified nutrition and wellness specialist who deeply desires to empower and educate children and families about the mind, body, and soul.
Ooh.
Ooh, Lav, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you. So good to be back with you guys.
We're so excited to have you back for round two. You are definitely one of the fiercest 2.0 leaders I know. But in this whole realm of parenting, especially, which I know is what we're going to dig into today. But let's start here because this is always where we like to start with our guests. What does leadership mean to you?
Oh, well, back to Rob's quote about having to be love before you can give love. It's leading yourself before you can lead others, right? And when we talk about parenting, like kids do what they see, not what we tell them to do. Like we're essentially modeling, not just for our children and families, but as a leader, right? That's what Leadership 2.0, I think, is very soul and heart driven.
Mm-hmm.
Show everybody your shirt, right? That big heart. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I think it's coming from a place of soul, really.
I absolutely agree with that one. And this is what I love about you as a leadership expert, right? Is like it's totally heart centric, it's totally human centric. But where I see that show up for you the most, knowing you as well as I do, is with your children. And so, how about in that realm? What does leadership mean to you as a parent?
Yeah. Oh man. It means a lot of things. Thank you. That was such a beautiful compliment, because I don't always feel like I'm getting it right. But I think that's also the point as parents, is we're not going to be perfect. I think it's important that our kids see that we're not perfect, because we have an opportunity to correct and guide ourselves in front of them, instead of pretending that everything's perfect, right? So perfection is definitely not the goal, but leading kids and being a parent, first of all, is a huge gift. And especially after what we've seen over the last few years, it's more important than ever to be a conscious parent, to embody the mind, body, soul connection. Because when we're grounded in self, we come from a very different place, just like in leadership, right? Yeah. And I think just modeling for our kiddos what it looks like.
Speak on it.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about that perfection. And it's actually have another quote here from Anne Quinlan, and she says, "The thing that's really hard and really amazing is giving up on being perfect and beginning the work of becoming yourself."
Oh man. Yes. High five to that one. Seriously. Yeah. I mean, I think perfection paralysis, especially for high achieving people, especially for parents, because we want to look like we have some idea of what we're doing, right? Which isn't always the case. It's like, who the heck knows? Like, we're winging it here. But yeah, perfection, I think, is it, and it's aligned with imposter syndrome. Like, you have full permission to be imperfect and full permission to be you. Everyone else is taken, right?
Yeah, and perfectionism is such a shame-based strategy. I think that's something that most people don't realize when they're running on it, right? So it's definitely not the model that we want to set for our children, because then that shame gets pressed into them. I want to circle back to a term that you just mentioned, which I kind of feel like may be new to some of the members of our audience, but you mentioned being a conscious parent and how requisite that is, especially right now in the world. So can you tell us a little bit more about what that actually means?
Yeah. So, I mean, conscious parenting is as simple as parenting from soul, like parenting, like rather than having like the crazy structure and rules, and like old school parenting is do as you're told, and be seen and not heard. And I mean, I'm sure we've all experienced bits of that growing up and stuff.
1.0.
Yeah, exactly. But I think just like leadership is transitioning, parenting is transitioning too into a more soulful practice. It's checking in with yourself. It's, I have 2 children and I cannot parent them the same way because they are very different little humans. It's having a checkpoint and an internal ground to lead from something bigger than just like a set of rules, for example.
Yeah, I love that, because I think it's so aligned, Rob, with everything that we do with our leaders, trying to like get them to break free of the autopilot, because when they're conscious, they're mindful, but when they're conscious and mindful and present, they're also going to be connected to their intuition. And like, I don't even know as a mother what parenting looks like, especially over the last 2 years where the playbook went out the window, right? Like for so many of us in so many different contexts.
Yeah.
I don't know what that would have looked like if I had not been conscious, mindful, and connected to my damn internal GPS.
Yeah. You hit it with connection, right? Like consciousness ultimately is connection to self and connection to source, so that we're able to connect with others from that place.
And so folks out there want to start becoming more connected. How would you recommend they go about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot to be said for having a spiritual practice, getting back to, I'll call it rituals that feel good, feel empowering for us, for our connection to self and to source or spirit or God or universe, whatever you want to call it, something bigger than just yourself. And I personally, I've had a spiritual practice that's evolved kind of with me and with my career and with my parenting over the years, and it is ever changing. So I'll tell you what that is right now. But when I start my day, I start it with intention and mindfully. So I do the things that I know ground and connect me into my consciousness and into universal consciousness before I do anything else. So that right now looks like I start with a meditation. It's not always the same one. I go based intuitively on what I feel like I need in the moment, or whatever the theme is for the week. I'm definitely plugged into nature on a daily basis. So, I mean, it depends on timing, but sometimes it's a walk down by the lake. I'm really close to the lake, which I'm lucky to have. Or over the summer, we were so grateful to have lots of access to, being up north and cottages and just being in the trees. I journal every day just to, like part brain dump, part gratitude, part what direction I'm going in. I also journal, stuff comes up for me in meditation, and I make sure to pay attention to it and write it down so that it's not just like a blip. Like you're communicating with source energy when you're in meditation, right? So taking note of the stuff that comes through, which can be super powerful. And I do angel readings as well. So I always ask my angels to come in for help. I know it's a little woo-woo for some people, but it's so connected to your intuition and your energy. And if you look at energetics and stuff like that in your practice, it can actually really help you with your direction and your day and your focus and your intention. And then I'll read for about half an hour. Typically on a work day, it'll be a business book, but that changes day to day too. So I think a spiritual practice is really important for consciousness and intention. And, it can be rituals like sleep or what you feed your body with, or, how you move your body. Stuff like that helps too.
If only we could sleep.
I knew you were going to go there. What would you say, though, to all the high-achieving parents out there who are listening to all those things that you just riffed on and unpacked it out of your own toolbox? What would you say to the parents out there who are saying, yeah, right, I do not have time to meditate, walk out in nature, journal my thoughts, talk to my spirit guides? For all the high achievers out there, I kind of feel like this is somewhere we got to go next, right?
100%. Yeah, I get that. I get that sentiment because I was that person too. And what I would say to any high achiever is you don't have time not to. You can't afford to not have that connection going forward, because that's the direction that Leadership 2.0, as you guys embody so well, is. You have to be connected. Mm-hmm. You can't operate from here only. You have to be connected. Mm-hmm. So to be able to drop down into your heart and into your body and to feel that connection, you have to take a few minutes. You don't have to do all the things I do. Start with one thing. Mm-hmm. Start with a 5-minute meditation first thing when you wake up in the morning before your feet even hit the ground. Mm-hmm. It can be as simple as that. And if we can't create 5 minutes for some mindfulness and some intentional connecting to create that conscious leadership, then we're not heading in the right direction, I don't believe.
I would say, what the heck is the alternative? If you're running around on fight or flight all day because you're so busy, you're not in a safe space inside of yourself. And so how the heck are you going to raise babies who feel safe inside of themselves? And we all know that is what we're up against, especially after the last 2 years of this disruption. Our kids have never been more anxious. Our kids have never been more depressed. Our kids have never been more suicidal. Wake up, folks. This is a crisis, the mental health that we're seeing and the stats that are skyrocketing amongst our youth.
100%. And it's honestly like shakes me to my core to hear the stats and to hear the damage that's been done to so many youth, even adults, but we're talking kids here. I saw it with my own girls, and like, listen, I get it. It's a rush in the morning. I'm a single parent. It's like, get up, get dressed, eat breakfast, get in the car, get to school. Like, don't take a breath. But intentionally slowing that down first by example for ourselves, right? Like, even if you have to set your alarm for 10 minutes earlier, like, give yourself the space to have that connection, because your kids are going to feel it too. Even if they're not doing it yet, you creating that space for yourself allows you to be more present, to connect on a deeper level, to hear and meet your children's needs on a deeper level, and to be more mindful in the things you do, even with just what you choose for breakfast. If you are in a more grounded, centered space, maybe you're not grabbing that muffin on the counter. Maybe you're making overnight oats. I don't know what you're doing, but it's going to be and I think that it's a very, very powerful practice, even if you just start small, like we were just saying. It doesn't have to be. I've been creating this toolbox for myself for 2 decades. It doesn't have to be what I'm doing. It's got to be something that feeds your soul.
I love it. And Susan, I want you to talk a little bit about, like, obviously you've shared with us some of the stuff that Brooklyn has picked up from you. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
It's so funny you're saying that, because I kind of feel like you calibrated this when we had her up at our team retreat, right? I think, and we had a conversation about it. But I think one of the most important things that I've been working on her, aside from just my presence, like that to me, coming out of my childhood experience, was definitely the most important thing for me to impact her with, was just me being present with her so she could feel that and she could feel worthy because of my presence. Like, I valued that time I had with her. I think like where I really started to see her struggle, when she got into the grade 2, 3, 4 years and started to have like some of those, social pressures out in the real world, because my child is a deeply empathic, sensitive soul. And so I would see that impacting her mood. I would see that impacting her energy. And so that's when I really started to amp up the boundaries work. And we started to have daily conversations about these things called boundaries and what they were and why they were important and how that was for her safety when she was not in our home, which is a really safe space for her. And so, I think you notice like she'll just remove herself sometimes because she calibrates that now. She has that level of mindfulness in her experience where she knows I'm overwhelmed. I feel a little bit drained or a little bit anxious because I've had so much in my energy space. And so, I think that's the thing I'm most proud of her for, is the fact that she's in tune to what she needs, and she's actually asserting that and taking that time in that space so that she actually can get grounded in her experience herself. Is that what you were referring to?
Yeah. And then I think you sent us one of her homeworks where she wrote all this like high performance stuff.
Oh, her what do they call those? The kids, what do they call them? Those little 5-minute mood journals, but it's not a mood journal. It's like some sort of a habit tracker. They call them habit trackers, I think. Yeah. That was funny during the pandemic because we, were trying to stay on track, right? When trying to adapt our routines. It was funny because I never even really spoke to her about that. I think she just kind of noticed that that's something that I do in my eye mood every day. And so I went in her little room one day, found her journal, and she had like her sleep tracker, and she was like tracking how many glasses of water she had. And she was like tracking her mood. And it's just, to me, that's the ripple effect, right? It doesn't work to tell our kids to have boundaries and to track their mood. And you can't tell them that command and control doesn't work. That's the whole reason for this damn show and this mission, right? So I think the model carries the most weight. I've just always just really really try to make sure that, especially when I'm with her, I'm in alignment with those values that I hold as her parents and the things I want so badly for her to pick up from my toolbox, which has been hard earned, right? Coming out of the traumas of my childhood. You know, I think that's the best way to fortify her, especially now in this world.
And Lav, like, what do you do and what do you teach with your kids?
Yeah, so my kids are interesting. So my older daughter is very outwardly sensitive and inwardly tough, I would describe her as. And my little one, the feisty dragon, is the opposite. She's outwardly tough, but inwardly super sensitive. So they both actually really resonate with a few things. So they've got crystal collections. I've got a little lapis lazuli here for intuition in my hand, but they have their own crystal collections. I know it sounds woo-woo, but if you actually think about how old these crystals and the earth are, they have an energetic frequency to them, just like our bodies do. And I find that they help as tools to help my kiddos ground, focus, create intention. My kiddos also love meditation. We do, especially at night, if they're feeling anxious or trouble sleeping, back to sleep again. We do body scans. So it literally gets them out of their head, that racket, which we've all experienced when you're like a million things going through your head. You can't fall asleep, or you wake up in the middle of the night, you can't get back to sleep because your brain's going a mile a minute. Our kiddos are the same. So with a body scan, it gets them out of that chaotic frequency and back into a grounded, heart-centered frequency where they're actually in touch with their body. Mm-hmm. And that absolutely helps them. They don't just use it for sleep. They use it for grounding, or if they're feeling an overwhelming emotion of some sort that they can't manage. And then the biggest thing that has the biggest impact, and I absolutely, when they were at home for school, made sure we did this every day, is grounding. Nature, nature, nature. In any form you can find it. Mm-hmm. Put your feet in the grass, put your feet in the sand, go for a walk by the lake, go for a walk around the block, go lie under a tree, whatever you have to do to connect with nature. They've had that practice forever. And, you know, I've seen as their parent, the difference on the days that we do that and the days that we've missed it or neglected it. It's incredible. So they've got a bunch of practices that they love and that they know work for them. So they're already at this age, 6 and 11, creating their own toolkit based on intuitively what feels right for them. And they're going to be able to carry that with them for life as something that they can always come back to, which I think is so powerful.
I love that. And maybe a question for both of you is, like, so context is my nephew came to us and said he wanted to get into MIT. And he's 15 years old. And like my initial thought was like, well, you needed to start like 10 years ago and like do all this stuff and be in all the clubs and play sports and do all this stuff, right? Like, how do we teach our kids? One is like, is it the pressure that they truly want, or is it just they're feeling like they need to or have to? And how do you also balance their high achiever that maybe they're getting that social pressure from school or the movies or internet or whatever?
I'll go first if you want, Lev. I feel like Brooklyn is heck no to the Ivy Leagues, right? Because she's heard Mommy speak about her story so much as a thought leader, right? Getting on stages and such, giving that story over and over again. I kind of feel like she really rejects that level of pressure. I saw her do that with sports, where she was just like, no, thank you. I'm good. She saw the intensity around the hockey rink, that first 10-bit skate. She calibrated that because she's such a sensitive soul. And she said, no, thank you. I think it's part of the boundaries work that we were just talking about. Like, and I also think I empower her to know that she could do whatever she wants. That's completely up to her. And I just try to elicit conversations in and around what she's passionate about and tell her about different options that she can explore in terms of that. Like even this last week at the cottage, we were talking about art school, like maybe she doesn't go to a typical university. Maybe she goes to an art school because that's clearly her biggest passion at this point. Right. So I think it's about empowering them to realize that they're at the helm and then helping to educate them a little bit in terms of making decisions that are aligned with their values and their sweet spot, right? In terms of who they are and what they love. How about you, Lav?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think the boundaries are huge for kids. There's so much social pressure. I would come from a place personally of, why do you want that? Because if your nephew genuinely wants that because he wants it, because it's his interest, then you can help to prepare and equip him with personal tools to not get sucked into that energy of it, to be able to hold his own energy through the experience. However, if you feel like he's being influenced into that decision, then just coming back to, why do we want what we want? And it might be a valid reason, right? Or he might be choosing because it's what somebody else wants for him and he doesn't even realize it. He just thinks he's supposed to. So I think coming from a place first of like finding out where that urge and decision is coming from, like identify that. And then I'll just help him, I think, have a set of tools that can keep him in a space of having the boundary, like Susan said, to choose what he actually wants without all of that pressure.
That's really the key, right? That's really the key, is to remove that pressure from the decision.
Yeah.
And that's where empowerment needs to live, right?
100%.
Because there's no pressure, just endless possibilities. It's a total reframe on making that choice, right?
Don't worry. I've already put the 5-year-old twins on a program to get them into Stanford.
Oh, I hope that's not true, Mr. Rob. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think it's when they have that groundwork, then they can go into any setting and feel confident, even if it happens to be Stanford or Princeton or whatever, right? It's like, it's giving them the foundation that they will be okay in any situation, and they can have the confidence to know that too.
Amen. So tell us a little bit about this mission that you're on, especially in and around conscious parenting, which, if you're not catching what we're throwing down at this point in the interview, is kind of leadership 2.0 for parents and children, right? But tell us a little bit more about the mission that you're on and what has inspired you to go on that mission, especially at this moment in history.
Yeah. It's actually come about very organically. Like, I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years and, my kids have grown up watching what that looks like. And, my businesses and interests have shifted over the years. But what I've seen raising my own kids and being around other parents is there's such a huge opportunity to give our kids these gifts that some of us have only accessed as adults. Like, I think about, even just the spiritual practice we were talking about, right? Being able to give them that platform, that confidence, that empowerment, that grounded connection to move into the world with. What an opportunity, because like you said, leadership 2.0, the face of leadership is changing and very rapidly. And what we've seen our kids go through over the last few years, especially, just was like fuel to the fire for me. I'm like, these children have these beautiful hearts and beautiful minds. And like, as adults, I feel like we can pinpoint like a place in our history, personally, each of us, where that joy and that brightness and that connection was removed and leadership 1.0 kicked in, right? So being able to have them keep that connection to self and to source and to joy and to all of the things that make them who they are, and to have the confidence to use that, like we were just saying with your nephew, Rob, to move into the world and to move into their own leadership roles eventually in communities, in families, in friendship circles, whatever. That they have that consciousness, that they embody that mind, body, soul connection, that they have that framework and that foundation to live through life with, that they don't have to wait till they're 40 to find it,
Right.
Yeah. So I think it's just giving them that huge advantage, not in a competitive sense, in a self sense.
In a self-actualization sense. I feel like that's really the opportunity for our parents today, right? Is to understand that when you become a conscious parent and you lead your kids in this 2.0 heart-centric way and help them become conscious children, that's a powerful foundation that Rob and I here spend day in and day out trying to help our adult leaders find. And it is a grind, ladies and gentlemen. We've all heard the stories on this show about how hard that is once we become whole adults, right? Like, and it's the easiest time to really implant these resources in a human experience is when we're young.
Yeah.
That is a competitive advantage, because if we have that foundation, not only are we going to be able to sustain our children's mental health through all the craziness and adversity and disruption in this world, but it also is the launch pad for them being able to realize their highest potential in this lifetime. And that is how this connects to the mission that we are on, right, Rob? To change the way the game of life and business is being played forever. So why are we on that mission? Because we want that to be the world that our kids get to raise their kids in, right? And our kids, they're a massively important aspect of that mission. So this to me is such light strokes opportunity for us to really just come to the table. I know when I'm working with clients, this is like one of the top values on their list, my family.
Yep.
So it's like the most important thing to them, right? Yet they maybe just don't have the playbook, because let's be honest, our parents didn't have the playbook.
No.
And if we haven't done the work, we're probably still running on that 1.0 playbook a little bit, because it's so autopilot what shows up, right, in your parenting if you're not conscious and aware.
It's so true. Imagine if we had those tools earlier or right from day one, where we'd all be totally different picture. I was raised by a doctor and a lawyer, so I totally appreciate the 1.0 leadership and So I think it's cool to be able to do it a little differently. Kudos to our parents. They were on survival mode, I guess we'll call it.
They did the best with what they had.
100%. But let's make that change for our kiddos. I think it's important.
So where can parents begin if they're new to getting into conscious parenting?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's as simple as, like we said, in leadership, embodying that first. Our kiddos do what they see us doing, not necessarily what we tell them to do. So partly it's having some sort of a practice yourself. You do not have to be perfect. I will say that 1,000 times today. You do not have to be perfect.
Permission to not be perfect.
One foot on the journey, right? Just pick up one new tool. Like, it's the effort and the intention and the direction you're setting for yourself, not that you're doing it perfectly, that they're going to see. Permission to not be perfect. Totally cool. And then it's also, introducing them to tools that they connect with, that are fun for them. It can be super simple. It's as simple as, what are you feeding your mind? What are you feeding your body? What are you feeding your soul? Those three things. And it's easy for them to check off. I do a game with my kids every day after pickup, or at the end of the day, if it's not a school day, and it's called Rose and Thorn. And they get to, tell me what the best part of their day was and the crappiest part. And if they wanted to do a do-over on the crappy part, they could pick the do-over and how they would choose to do that differently. So just consciousness and your choices in the moment. But those are all things like tools for reflection. It doesn't have to be complicated. It's just getting them to feel and think and process and connect with that part of themselves. And there's a million different ways that they can do that.
And tell us about your books that are coming out.
Oh.
So these are a total heart project, but the whole point with them was to be a tool for kids and for parents that keep it simple. They are for the mind, body, soul connection. I have them here. So we've got
Hold that up. I am.
So this is affirmations.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got today I ate the rainbow. This is how they're fueling their body.
I love
right?
that.
Simple food choices. And then feel better, my love. So this is the soul connection for them. And this is about big feelings and little bodies. And sometimes it's hard to talk about. So just giving them an opportunity to start having the conversations and start thinking about these things for themselves and how it affects them, how it affects their day, how it affects how they feel, how it affects their relationships. So it's a tool for parents and for kiddos. And it's pretty cool to see them in real life.
I love that as an actual tangible tactical tool. Like for any parents who are out there listening, like, oh my gosh, this is a lot, right? Well, let's just simplify it for you. There's one simple action that you can take every single night with your child, right? 100%. And that can be an anchor for our parents, busy all day, knowing that they have that opportunity to ground with their child in that moment and be intentional in terms of helping to impart some of these really core requisite strategies, really, right? In terms of the brain training and the heart training for our children. But what a high quality exchange that would be.
Yeah. And I mean, they're meant to be just a simple tool to like just start that practice for parents and kids, and for kids to start just thinking about those things for themselves, right? Mm. And it's an easy tool, right? It's not something difficult. Mm-hmm. You know, kids love bedtime stories. It's a point of connection for parents and kids too, that quality time together.
Yeah, that's low-hanging fruit. Yeah. What do you want your legacy to be of all this conscious parenting mission that you are on so fiercely? What do you want the legacy of that to be someday?
Yeah, I mean, it's an overwhelming thing to think about, and I feel like a very huge responsibility. But I feel like the legacy portion of it would be to have a generation of conscious, mindful little leaders going out into the world and going out into the community and, you know, building from that place. I'd be very excited to see what the world looks like in a few decades, you know?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. We're excited too, right, Rob?
That's right. We'll make it happen. Now, Lav, where can folks find your books?
Yeah, that's a great question. So they'll be on Amazon in October. You can also get them through my website, consciouskids.ca. And then you can also find me on all the social platforms as well. If that's something that you're connected with, feel free to connect with me there. I love having a great community to, you know, get these kids going with.
So we'll drop all those links in the podcast notes. So folks just scroll down, you'll have them there. And do you have anything you want to say to the parents out there?
Mm-hmm. Final call.
Oh man. Parenting, I think, is the most powerful leadership role on the planet. Personally, it's my opinion. And I think no matter how you're doing it, just give yourself a little credit, because it's not easy and you don't have to be perfect. But just be mindful that, you know, we have an opportunity to raise conscious babies, raise conscious kids, raise conscious teenagers, and send them out into the world with, you know, a platform that not only will serve them for the rest of their life, but will serve all of humanity as well.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. And obviously for us, Please hit subscribe to Leadership Launchpad Project on your favorite podcast platform and head on over to Elite High Performance for all things leadership development, keynote speaking, DEI, trust, psych safety, and more. Susan, is there anything you want to leave folks with today?
I'm just so fulfilled, honestly, having this conversation with you too. What a gift, right? Like our core belief at this show is that adversity is just the opportunity for growth dressed up and disguised as adversity. But if you really heard what we laid down in today's interview, you'll see that opportunity in all this disruption. I know our kids are up against it, but what a tremendous opportunity to get in on the ground floor and plant those damn seeds that are going to continue to grow and flourish and spread that ripple effect far and wide. I mean, I can't imagine a more important aspect of leadership. I really can't. I'm just so grateful you came in today to share your brilliance with our audience, Lav. Honestly, you're one of the fiercest, most empathic, sage, wise, old soul I've ever been so fortunate to know. And I know our audience is just going to absolutely devour this interview. So thank you so much for sharing your brilliance with us.
Thank you guys so much for having me back. It's so fun to be on here with you too. And I think that the message that you guys have is super powerful too.
Oh, thanks, girl.
Thank you so much. And for me, I have another quote from Robert Thurman. And he says, imagine a culture in which everything is geared towards helping all individuals become the best humans they can be, in which individuals are driven to devoting their lives to becoming enlightened by the natural flood of compassion for others that arises from their wisdom.
Yep.
Mic drop.
And I'll leave it there. Everyone, Labs, thank you so much. Everyone for listening, thank you so much. And we'll see you all next week.
Bye, everyone.